Thank you so much for joining us here on a Thursday morning. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, your tour guide to the ag commodities. I am joined by the one and only Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions. He hails from Springfield, Missouri. And Brian, a little bit ago, we had some export sales data that came out from USDA, the weekly update. And gosh, haven't had a chance to do this for a while, but it came out on the right day. It came out on Thursday like it usually does. Let's walk through these numbers here. I want to get your take on what they may mean. So we'll start off by taking a look at the corn. We had corn sales 487,600 tons this time around. Once again, I always combine the marketing years, the current and the next, if there are any. In this case, it looks like it's all for the current marketing year. What is your thought on that? Is that, it looks like it's up 33% from what we had last week, but is that very impressive?
Hey, good morning, Marlon. Yeah, we get to talk about it on a Thursday this week. Of course, next week we will be talking on a Friday about these export sales because it's a 3-day weekend coming up once again. Markets closed on Monday, so all these reports get pushed back a day. As far as this particular export sales numbers go, these are pretty unimpressive numbers. Now, they are holiday shortened numbers once again. It's a week ending January the 4th, so we include the new year in there. So we expected they'd be pretty poor. But yeah, these are not great numbers by any stretch of the imagination. Now, China did buy about 3 million bushels of U.S. soybeans, and some of that was switched from an unknown destination. But there was also some cancellations in there. About 2.9 million bushels of previously purchased soybeans showed up as being canceled. So these cancellations are starting to develop. And we've been hearing rumors last couple days that China's starting to wash out of not only U.S. purchases, but purchases they made from Brazil, and they're going to try and repurchase at lower money. And so it looks like with a big crop coming on, they're going to be able to do that successfully. So we didn't hardly see any corn sales this week. We saw a private flash sale this morning. That's kind of a positive surprise. Mexico was a buyer, first sale of any kind since December the 19th. So that, I think, is kind of catching the trade off guard, or will, this morning. And then you look at your wheat sales. They were pretty paltry, but there was a cargo of, I think it was hard red wheat included in that sale to China this morning.
All right, so as Brian mentioned, we had a sale of corn to Mexico. I believe we have that in the system here. If you look at the overnight sale, I'm showing 175,000 tons of corn to Mexico, and it is during the 2023 and 24 marketing year. So that would be the crop that has just been harvested, so they can take that any time, I guess, right?
Yeah, that would be the case. They could take that at any time, and they may need some product. They had gone quite a long time without any private sale announcements. As I said, December 19th of purchase of anything. So they're probably getting to the point where they need some product. Corn's at contract lows, been moving lower, so it's a great time for foreign buyers to start stocking up on some product. And Mexico's been the best buyer of U.S. corn by far and away this year.
Well, let's look at the soybean numbers then. And on soybean sales last week, we had 280,400 tons that were sold. That doesn't seem to be a very great number. We have been getting used to numbers over 1 million.
Yeah, and you factor in, there was some cancellations, as I mentioned, almost 3 million bushels, 2.9 million that China had canceled. So that's why we're seeing these numbers a little bit softer. Plus, it was a holiday week. In just next week's sales, we don't expect to be very strong again as well. And maybe more cancellations show up, and that could be very disappointing to the trade.
And the wheat, only 128,100 tons. That seemed to be kind of a low number, too. Now what?
Yeah, yeah, it's disappointing. Wheat, you would hope, would be doing better. The dollar had rallied, and that directly hurts the amount of crop we're able to sell, particularly the wheat market. We didn't see any cancellations of wheat, so that's at least a small positive. But this is near the marking year low for wheat, and you need to be doing at least 8.5 million bushels to hit the USDA forecast that they've put out there.
Well, let's look at our futures then and how we closed overnight on the Globex trade. Now, this is the last trading day before tomorrow's set of USDA reports. March corn closed 1/4 cent lower this morning at $4.59 1/4. On soybeans, we finished up the overnight session with the March contract 3.5 cents higher at $12.40. And let's check out the wheat, see what happened in wheat. We'll start in Chicago. You have the March contract 3 3/4 lower and we closed at 607 overnight. Kansas City had March down 3 at 621.5, and Minneapolis wheat was actually down a penny and a quarter at 706.5. For you cotton fans out there, you have the March contract 118 points higher, though, at 81.36. Look at them taking a leadership role. Okay, we'll be back, and we have beef and pork export numbers to talk about, too, and maybe you can help explain what we have in the data that gets kind of confusing. So we'll sort it all out when we come back. All right, we're back with Brian Hoops. We're talking weekly export sales data. Now, we can take a look at the beef and the pork sales here. And they did publish those numbers, but it's kind of intriguing. I need a little help with this. On the beef side, we had apparently sold 12,200 tons of beef last week. Now, I put an asterisk on that for a footnote because at the bottom part of the narrative, then USDA says there were net sales reductions of 900 tons that were carried over from last year's marketing year, which ended on December 31st. So not sure what to do with that. That would be separate from the 12,200. Then on the pork, kind of the same thing. We had new sales for 2024 of 23,300 tons. But then on the bottom of the paragraph, they say net sales reductions of 73,500 tons were carried over from 2023. Again, I left that part off. I don't know what to do with that. Do those eventually come home to roost? Do they drop off the books, or what do they do with those?
It's government math, so you don't really know what they're going to do with it. I would think you would carry them forward, and eventually they would drop off. But like you said, we're kind of caught in the dark with what the government says sometimes as far as these reports go. Mexico, the biggest buyer of U.S. beef this week. China's notably absent from both beef and pork sales this week. So they're really pulled back from any purchases, and I think that's why, one of the reasons anyway, why these sales are down and a little bit disappointing this week. So especially that pork number, when you don't have China stepping in and being an aggressive buyer, our sales really seem to fall off, and it's a disappointment for the hog market, because that market's really dependent upon exporting a lot of product as we try and chew through larger supplies that we have. And so cattle market this week, they actually revised Tuesday's kill down by another 10,000 head, and that helps prop our box beef up, and we've seen a recovery in our box beef. Packer margins improving, but they are trying to buy the cattle at much cheaper money compared to a week ago. I don't know they'll get the job done this week as we're trying to clean out from these snowstorms, but that's what they're attempting to do anyway, as we slow our kill speeds down because of holidays and because of the snowstorm.
Well, we did close fairly weak on the live cattle yesterday. We did have February down 2 cents, but you had April up 7. We were at 173.67, and June did show a 35-cent gain yesterday. We'll keep that in mind here after these export sales. Don't know if they'll affect that much or not. Feeders had a pretty strong close. March was up $1.25 at 226.12 yesterday. And on lean hogs, when they went home for the end of the session, we had February up 20 cents. April was 45 cents higher. So again, I don't know how they're going to interpret these weekly export numbers. That ought to be interesting this morning. Well, Brian, thanks for talking with us and helping to explain all that. Appreciate that. We'll catch up with you again tomorrow. That's Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions.